Hi everybody, it's Mike Newman. It's Sunday night with ILXCTF. Hope everybody had a good weekend. Wasn't the weather beautiful yesterday? I mean, for running. I went to Wheaton North. Didn't go to Terre Haute, or I didn't go to Peoria. You have to listen to your body. You have to listen to yourself every once in a while, and this was one of those weekends where I needed to do that. Plus with everything else that was happening this weekend, I think it was good that I stayed close to base. Yeah, it's going to be a tough show. So, have patience with me. It's just going to be one of those days. So there's a lot to cover. There really is a lot to cover. We're going to talk about Peoria. We're going to talk about Nike Twilight. We'll also talk about briefly the Savage Invite, St. Charles North, and that's about it. And anything else that comes to the top of my head, and then I'm going to talk a little bit. So I promise I won't bore you. It's necessary. So let's get started. Let me start with my cynical narrative, as I always do. Gosh, yeah, I gotta stop there. I'm gonna take a quick stop on this. I can't do that. So I'm looking at the results. I was at Wheaton North. We'll talk about Wheaton North also. In between one of the races, after an interview, I checked the results that were coming in. Or no, I'm about ready to check the results, and Jim Hedman, who's the assistant coach at York, goes, "This kid Nalley, do you know him?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Dylon Nalley from Marion. He's a junior. He's pretty good." He's like, "He's real good because he ran 14:03. Holy smokes!" So that is the third fastest time, non-state meet time ever on that course. In 2017, Danny Kilray ran 14:01 at first to the finish, and then the next month, beginning of the month, Dylan Jacobs went out and ran 13:57.5, did a photobombed team from Mundelein. They were taking a picture, and he waved at him as he's running 13:57, and Dylan's a national champion and all of that, both in high school and college. I thought that was pretty cool. And then we have Nalley at 14:03. He's the number 2 junior all-time behind Craig Virgin. Virgin ran 13:59 to win the state in 1971. Jacobs' time 13:57 is the meet record. Somebody tweeted, "Well, he finally broke Ron Craker's record." No, Jacobs did in 2017. Come on. Ooh, nice red mark there. Nice red. So the time is tied for 14th all-time if you include state meet times and invitational times. Tied with, I think you've heard of him, Donald Sage from York, when Donald ran 14:03. So he's tied for 14th. So we've got to throw this out here. It's less than 5 weeks now before state meet. And it's the elephant in the room. We got to talk about the elephant. No, we don't have to talk about the elephant in the room. Let's just put it out there where he ran 14:03 at the beginning of October, and he's been running. This wasn't a fluke. I mean, he's been running some great times. He ran 14:36 at Granite City at the beginning of the year, and he ran 14:45 at Detweiller Park. So this didn't come out of nowhere. And plus the fact he didn't run last year. He didn't run his sophomore year. So do you think he has a little chip on his shoulder right now? I'm going to go out and just lay down some, I almost swore, times that nobody's going to believe. But believe it. I mean, I was looking for splits, and there were no splits. So I heard there was a timing map for each spot. So it'll be interesting to see when they post the splits. I'm going to call the timer tomorrow morning and say, hey, what's going on? Are there splits, or did something happen? And I'd love to see what he went out in and everything else as a reference, because we're going to have to talk about this in another month. So he finishes just before 10 a.m. on Saturday. So I think there's only been, I think, 9 runners. If you include John Davis, the IHSA has John Davis at 14 minutes because they rounded up his time. When he crossed the line and on the scoreboard, it showed 13:59.3. So I counted as 13:59.3. You going to believe me, or are you going to believe them? Okay. So it's going to be interesting. He's going to have to do it on his own. The conditions are going to have to be great. We haven't had any rain. What happens if we get a ton of rain, during the state series? We're not going to be running at Detweiller after the Patriot Invite on the 14th, 15th, something like that. Well, today was, the 15th. That's when the Patriot Invite is. That's the last meet before state there. So that course drains pretty nicely too. I mean, we've seen some terrible rains that have happened in the Peoria area, and you get down there and you're like, drained. It's drained. You got 3 inches of rain in 5 hours? Can't tell. There's been other times where it's rained during a meet, and there goes the ball game for the rest of the year. So, I mean, what can we say about that? Dylon Nalley, 14:03.49. Then you have Gavin Genesio. Breaks Benton's school record, which was held by their coach, Brent McLean, who ran 14:39, I want to say, in winning the 1982 2A state championship. Brent McLean was a state champion. So he broke his coach's record. He's only a junior, so I can't. Genesio and Nalley trained together during the summer, so I'm sure it was rewarding for both of them. And then Dale Johnson of Sterling, 14:53. Joe Schwartz, Waterloo, 14:56. And Jillian Baker of Mount St. 14:59. So 5 runners under. Marion, who's I have ranked number 2 in the state. And they may go to number 1. And they ran a good race. I mean, they had an 18-second split. Really ignore the top 5 split for Marion. They won it with 136 points in the 1A, 2A race. They only had an 18-second split between 2 and 4. And then they have a 49-second split between 4 and 5. That could cause problems when we get to the state meet. But when you have, you can add their other 4 runners and then add 1, which Nalley is the clear favorite right now in 2A. Normal University, 152 points, a 21-second split from 1 to 4, and then they have a gap between 4 and 5. And there are so many teams that are close right now in 1A with DePaul, Latin School, North Riverdale, U-High, Rockford Christian, maybe Decatur St. Teresa sneaks in there. But it's really close between those first 5 teams. My computer wants to turn off, and I'm not going to let it. And Mather getting 3rd, that's a great race by them. They've run 2 good races at Detweiller, so 172 points. Could they be one of the favorites in the Chicago Public League? It wouldn't surprise me. So we'll have to just wait and see. I mean, they ran a good race, like, 3 runners in the top 34 in that race. 2A girls, Zoe Carter, 17-17. Boy, she's coming on strong, the sophomore. Natalie Beerbaum, 17-23. So normal U-High, here again, 2A girls is so mixed up right now. Crystal Lake South won this meet, but it's so tight right now. What can you do? So Beerbaum at 17-23, Isabella Gonzalez of Crystal Lake South at 17-30, Sandera Weber of Sandwich, 17-30. 145. Freshman, 1A. Keep an eye on her. And then Hannah Miser of Civic Memorial at 1751, and Sonia Matthew of Dunlop was their #1 runner, and she was just under 18 minutes at 17:59. So last year it was like razor tight. This year a little bit different. Crystal Lake South, I had them ranked #2 or #3, and I think that's where they belong in that area right now. And then Dunlop with 106, Chandler Glenwood ran good. I can't even read my writing. 108, I think. The Normal U High, there's a difference there. 163, and then Morton 175. Morton boys ran in the 2A and the 3A race, so it'll be interesting once we start figuring out rankings for this week, what goes on there. In the 3A girls, you only had 4 ranked teams there, so it's hard to read this. But Juliet Fromm runs 17:04, wins it from Glenbrook North. Brianna Burrick of Huntley 17:11. Huntley goes 2:58. The 2 Burrick sisters and then Molly Allen ran a great race. They have 3 runners that could be all state, and then getting their 4th and 5th runners closer together. Woohoo! Huntley's going to move into the top 10. So Burrick, and then Danielle Jensen of McHenry, and Sophia Akura of Maine South, and then Brittany Burrick. And Mia Pasha in her first race. Man, way to go, Mia! 17:26, just committed to Georgetown. Congratulations, Mia, on that choice. And then Kylie Simpson, the freshman from Hononegah, at 17, is that 25 or 35? I don't know. My writing sucks. Sorry. So Huntley with 82, Maine South 107, Edwardsville 110. Maine South was ranked higher than Huntley. That's going to change a little bit. And then Hononegah was ranked like 17th with 126, and then Jacobs with 145. They were all ranked, and they pretty much finished the way they are. So whether they move up or down or whatever, but the times weren't super spectacular in that race, but they were good. On the boys' side, Zach Close, and I know Zach's going, you didn't mention me in the preseason previews, individuals. What have we said? Doesn't matter where you start. You have fun along the way racing, and you get to your destination at the finish. And Close is he's gonna fulfill a lot of dreams. He's gonna realize some of these dreams running 14:33. Mario Torres, who is probably one of the most improved runners in the state right now, ran 14:44. He was second. And then Oscar Dueno Aldo, 14:45, third. Luca Acuria of Maine South, 14:47. And then Ben Crane, 14:48 of Nutrier. Nutrier had 3 runners under 15 in that race, and they scored 68 points. I was questioning when I finished the rankings, and I pressed my low button, they showed up in 7th. I'm like, ooh, 7th. Did I make a mistake? I'm going to leave it there. I trust that. I trust my computer. And they deserve to be. Maine South, 83. Neuqua Valley, 158. I didn't see Palmer in there. I don't know if Ryan Palmer dropped out or if they didn't run all their guys. Neuqua Valley is going to be running at Twilight, Naperville Twilight on Wednesday. And then Bennett Academy, who's in that tough sectional, Wabansie Valley, they were 4th. They ran a great race, 60-second split on 5. Downers Grove South also ran great with a 43-second split. They were 5th, 2:37. Huntley at 2:40. Huntley, the emergence of Huntley right now, which really makes that sectional at Lake Park a little more intriguing, because St. Charles East will come on strong, and all these teams that were ranked high early in the year that are starting to slip. It'll be interesting to see. And then York was 7th, 250 points. They really need to move their pack up. They only had a 30-second split on 5. Tight pack between 2 to 5, but they need to move that pack up. And you look at it now with the emergence of the emergence of Bennett Academy, and the emergence of Downers Grove South, along with Naperville Central. You have 10 teams vying for 7 spots. Real interesting. So what else? St. Charles. No. We want to talk about Nike. We want to talk about the Nike cross-country town Twilight meet. I saw one after I was done writing my pre-flow recap. I was going through reading a few things. Like, well, look, they were using glow sticks for lighting the course. I'm like, what the? It's just, I mean, it showed up on camera that it was dark. There was areas that were dark. They didn't have enough light. You can't light it like a regular day, like we're running at NXR regionals or anything like that, where you're going to be able to see every step. I don't know. I have never run a race on a cross-country course at night, so I can't tell you how it would be. I'd be a little cautious. I would get injured. I'd fall. I would trip over something. There might be a twig in the middle, and I'd trip over it. But the girls' race, they didn't show they showed Sierra O'Shea, who ran the 4th fastest time ever at Laverne Gibson, behind Thorvaldsen, who ran 16:37, and then Dudek and Hart at in 2019 ran 16:49.3, 16:49.9, and then O'Shea 16:52.1. She was one of those runners that was going to run at Great American, and that got washed out because of the hurricane. She won by 30 seconds. She looked great throughout. But then watching the finish, I'm watching the finish, and they announced like about 30 seconds right as O'Shea was finishing, team scores Prospect has like 25 points right now. And I'm like, no surprise. They freight trained everybody. It was a steamroll. They're like, we came here looking for a challenge. Well, was there a challenge? There wasn't a challenge. They scored 34 points. Columbus North was ranked 16th, and I questioned that. I looked at the rankings, and then I looked at the race that they ran that they were ranked off of. I'm like, how the heck do you rank them 16th? They got 4th. But Prospect Erickson, Zenaida 5-6. Peterson was 8, Ginsburg 10. They only had a 14-second split on 4. And then Callaway 18th, 37-second split on 5. Best race of the year. I looked at the speed ratings. I'm like, wow. I don't know if Roland has looked at them or as he's done them. I was looking at Tully runners and I saw their speed ratings. I'm like, that's the highest I've seen, other than the trumped up at Woodbridge, where it's Pancake City. They call Detweiller a pancake. I think you can. Woodbridge is a pancake. Get all these California listeners. Newman said something about Woodbridge. Okay. Any case, I really liked how Daniel Watke ran in the boys' race. He got 4th overall. Only his 2nd race of the year, and he runs 14:59. 4 runners under 15 minutes, and you include Matheson, who ran 14:51.7, who's about 3 seconds off of Zena Selassie's 14:48.8 record from 10 years ago, 11 years ago. 11 years ago, wow. Seems like only yesterday. But Plainfield South, 3rd with 140 points. And they were showing the things that were going on with Matheson and Hauser from Rockbridge, and another guy from Bray Booth Jesuit in Indiana, Floyd, or I don't know what his name was. But they were fighting back and forth, and Daniel stayed in there. He dropped off the pace a little bit, but came back strong at the end to run under that time. But Plainfield South, VJ in 8th, and then a 6-second split on their 2 through 5. So Maloney, O'Shea, BJ Sorg, and Ethan Reneso, who was 38. And those are the kind of races, those are the kind of packs that win you state championships and get you into the top 5 nationally. VJ will be up farther in the national race. He'll be an All-American. He's going to be vying for a state championship. And that pack, if that pack can stay that tight, get to see him run in a couple of weeks in the conference meet. That should be fun. Hinsdale Central 8th. Does it surprise me? Well, this is the second time they ran at the beginning of the month on their home course. And then they've, Daniel had to go went on a college visit. They've had some injuries. So they haven't really raced a lot. And their first three, Daniel in 4th, Aiden Bandukwala in 14th, and Michael Score in 31st. That's a great way to start. So you're right with, so you have three guys that are ahead of Plainfield South's three. But you can't run a 54-second split between 3 and 4. That's what gets you 8th place in high stakes meets like this, because their next two runners, Lowe and Smack, were 113th and 122nd. So you have to ignore the top 5 split with Daniel up front. But those other two guys who could be all state, they're going to be up there in the top 25. They've got to get those 4th and 5th runners closer together. What else? So quickly, I was at Wheaton North. The videos are up there. I shot finish line videos because they start the races every 15 minutes. So it's cool. You get to see everybody finishing the race. I thought it was really cool because usually I'm running around the course getting portions of the race. I'm like, let's see the finish of these races. I had a parent ask me that like 5 years ago. The last year I was there was when my daughter was a senior. And I had a parent complain, you're not shooting the finish. You shot the finish of the championship race. So I'm supposed to clone myself. I'm a one-man team here, and can't be everywhere at the same time. I've tried cloning. They've cloned sheep. It didn't go too bad, but whatever. So York, there are 10 ranked teams in there, but York, 8 points, which is a new meet record. That meet's been going on for a long, long time. So to score 8 points, winning 6 flights, and getting second in the championship flight, Anna Harden made one heck of a move after 2 miles. Just blew away Bria Bennis by 6 seconds. Bria, give her credit. She stuck with it. She hung in there. And it could have been a bigger margin, but Bria never gave up. So I'm not going to go through and put all the results together. We'll see give me a team score, and then we can figure it out that way. I did that in 77 because Deerfield ran a Crete-Monee. That was the big flight invite back then. And Deerfield and Sandburg, Tom Graves was running, and I don't know if Spivey was there. I don't think he went to that meet. But Deerfield was there. I want to see how Deerfield compared. I was doing little rankings in my head back then as a sophomore in high school. That's how nerdish I am with this. So, quickly, St. Charles North. Wheaton Warrenville South had a nice 33-34 second split, winning at St. Charles North ahead of Prairie Ridge and Belvedere North. Sandburg was 4th. They didn't run Trent Anderson in there. Grant Giblin ran a good race. He got 2nd overall. They've changed the course. It's 2.95? Yeah, 15:06, and even Evan Horgan, transformed basketball player, now runner, or both, for Belvedere North, won in 14:59. Good time on that course. On the girls' side, Downers Grove North tuned up for Naperville Twilight. 28 points. LT's JV team gets 2nd in that. And then Cary Grove, a 2A school, gets 3rd. And Batavia didn't run all their varsity runners. They're going to be running at Naperville Twilight. They were 4th. What else? Savage Invite. Oswego East, 94 points. Parker Knoll, 14:56, won by 19 seconds. He was all by himself. And Matt Conroy of St. Ignatius, 15:15. Oswego East won by 6 over St. Ignatius. They're ranked close together, so that makes sense. 94-100. Then DePaul, one of the top 1A schools, 133. And then New Trier's JV at 176. What can we say about that? On the girls' side, DePaul, a 1A school. They're ranked in the top 10 in 1A. They're good. They win it with 135. Oswego gets 2nd without Sunderland. She's running individually at Naperville Twilight. They rested her, and Oswego still gets second. What kind of meet is this? We're the biggest meet held on a school campus. Okay. Do you need hip boots to walk the course? I'm just saying. Then Vernon Hills third with 173, Evanston with 198. And Izzy Marcico, 1801. And then Mellon of Bradley Bourbonnais at 1814. And Hannah Tate from Taft, she's been running good all year, 1825. So we're going to have a preview coming up for Naperville Twilight. It'll be out early this week. I'll put it out Thursday morning. How's that? It'll be out earlier before that. So I was thinking yesterday, if I had to do this part yesterday, I wouldn't be able to get through this. So let's see if I can get through this. I think I can. I know I can. So I think one of the best decisions in my life was that I left a pretty healthy career in business management. And I decided to follow a passion of mine, which is what I'm doing now. I'm doing this for like 12 years now, believe it or not. And one of the guys that thought that I had a lot of potential, other than Bob and Tony, who brought me on when it was Illinois Prep Top Times, and then they were bought out by DyeStat, was John Dye. I got to meet him a couple of times. There was one time we had a meeting in Chicago. He said, well, come down, get here a half an hour early. Can you do that? Sure. Took the train down, and we had a nice talk. He wanted to know all about me. He wanted to know my background and everything else. And it was a good conversation. So when everything happened, when ESPN dropped DyeStat, it was like it was on a Wednesday, and I was kind of shell-shocked. And then I get an email that night from Mr. Dye, and he said, Mike, I know I'll see what I can do in paying you, but can you make sure the results get into DyeStat? I'm like, sure, definitely, no problem. So I spent the weekend trying to figure out what was next in my life, putting in results, and I got a happy feeling with that. And then after it was over, I got an email from him saying, you did a great job. I want to talk to you in the next few days. So the next day, he calls me and he said, here are my plans. Here's what we're thinking. We're going to try to find somebody that will invest in us, that we can keep this website running. It meant a lot to him, obviously, since he created that. He's the father of internet coverage in track and field and cross country in high schools. Did so much. And he called and he said, I'm going to need somebody to do the results. If you're not going to be on board with this, I don't see why I'm going to do this. And I'm like, I'm on board. I didn't even think about it. I'm following my dream and doing all of that. So it was a shock yesterday when I got home from Wheaton North, and oh God. So yeah, it was a shock that found out that Mr. Dye passed, and gosh, now my eye's gonna water, and then it's gonna sting, and I'm not gonna be able to keep it open. What in the world is going on here? So I kept up with Derek. Derek showed me the ropes with the old TFX system. And, darn it. Yeah, and I sent him a note yesterday, and he sent me a nice note back, which I start bawling my eyes out. from what he said about his dad with me and everything else. But any case, we couldn't find an investor during that time. We had I had my own website, Illinois Prep Area, if you remember that train wreck. That was my first little website. Other people are going, he's going downhill, he's going to go down in flames. I'm still here. But at the beginning of December, right the day before the state meet, he made the announcement that DyeStat was going to be closing. And I started looking for other jobs. I did an interview with this guy about a running website that he was planning on starting, and I kind of turned that down. I just didn't feel right about it. I almost went back into management. And I didn't take that job. It meant going to Minnesota. It meant being away from my kids. I was divorced. I wanted to be part of their lives in the activities they were doing. So that was a no-brainer. And then I get an email from Mr. Dye. I think somebody is really interested in us. It's Runner's Space. And I told Ross Krempley a lot about you. Do you mind sitting down and talking with him, or have a phone conversation with him? And so Ross called the next day, and we talked and we talked and we talked for 2.5 hours, because we're the same bloodline. We're, I think, all of us in Runner's Space are running nerds, and I love the stats and everything else. Never got a chance to thank Mr. Dye for that. I wish I would have. I think he knew, because look what we're doing now with athletic.net and everything else. It's just crazy with all the results. So it was the most meaningful conversation I had. And just seeing all the comments yesterday by former people like Rich Gonzalez and Dave Devine, John Neapolitan, who still takes pictures for DyeStat and Runner's Space, and Steve Underwood. And Steve, when I came on board, we worked together for the first year, and he was a year ahead of me in college. He went to Calvin. I went to North Central. He kicked my butt all the time. Yeah. So if you ask me, I love this hat. I love that hat. So if you ask me why I do it, it's because of the background that I've had with Mr. Newton and Ken Popejoy and Al Carius and Mr. Dye. I think one of the things, and I don't think he said this, taught this, but he never gave up on DyeStat when we were going through bad times. And that meant a lot. Where he was doing it, and then the night before state meet, found out that the site wasn't, and the news traveled around, what are you going to do now? Some people were snickering, he's dead, he's dead. Not dead, still here, still kicking ass. But he never gave up, and he followed his passion. We have so many people at Runner's Space and DyeStat and athletic.net that are running nerds, running geeks, that love this sport and would do anything to get you the news, or to tell the news, or tell stories, or do silly shows like this. Because we love the sport. I love this sport. And this fall has been rough. Personally, physically, professionally. When I look at the back wall, I see Mr. Newton. And that green hat is one of Mr. Newton's hats that one of my former high school coaches, Al Janos, after the memorial service, gave to me. He's like, he'd want you to have that. So I'm hurting. So I'm going to stop here because I'm a mess. But I wanted to do this show today, and I wanted to say a few beautiful things about Mr. Dye. The reason that I'm here is because of what Mr. Dye started in 1997 on the internet. There wouldn't be a DyeStat, there wouldn't be an Athletic.net, there wouldn't be a Runner Space without what John Dye, his wife Donna, his son Derek, who is the stat guru, taught me a lot. Where would we be now? Listening to train wreck shows, I don't know. So I'm going to stop. I'll see you at Naperville on Wednesday. I can't wait for that. It's going to be a great meet. Preview will be out this week, but I got to go.